Hey everyone, Gayatri here with you today. I have a video showing how to reuse your negative die cuts. This is the card I made where I have used negative die cut leaves as stencils and sponged some distress inks to get these beautiful layered fall leaves on my card. This is the negative die cut sheet of cardstock which I have here. I have used the leaf die cuts for Christmas cards, and I have this left over. I have a few more on my desk, so I'm going to use these to stencil as stencil. And these leaf die cut is from foliage frames from W+9. I've used this center die to cut them out and used it on my Christmas cards, which I'll video later. Today we are going to use the negative left out of die cutting the leaves. On my original card, the plan was to watercolor after sponging, and so I had used watercolor paper. But after sponging, I liked the defined look of the leaves, and so I ditched my plan to watercolor. For the card I'm doing today, I'm going to use the regular white cardstock instead of watercolor paper. I'm going to stick to the layout of my original card by and large, but I'm not going to accurately repeat the placement of the leaves because it's too hard to repeat the pattern for me. The distress inks I'm using today are mustard seeds, spice marmalade, crushed olive, aged mahogany, festive berries, and mowed lawn. And I'm also using sponge daubers. I'm going to start by adhering the cardstock onto my mat using repositionable tape. I'm aligning the card with the grid on the mat, and now I'm going to use the negative die cut cardstock here. I'm going to move it quite a bit, so I'm not going to use repositionable adhesive behind because I'm a bit lazy and it's a long drawn process for me to keep adding the tape and moving it to different places. So I'm just going to put my hand down to hold the negative die cut and start sponging. I'm going to start with festive berries, and I have slightly offset the leaves so that it gives a beautiful falling effect. I'm starting with sponging the festive berries, and I'm going from out to inside. I'm sponging the ink from out towards the inside so that I'm not bending and moving the corner bits inside the negative die cut. I'm doing it carefully and also covering all the nooks and corners out here. I just keep moving my hands to keep the negative die cut in place and keep sponging the ink. You can add as much ink you want or as little depending on how intense the color you want to. and in the places where the little tiny corners try to flip up, I use the twist and lift motion so that I don't tear up those little bits and pieces. They stay in place and you get nice defined edges. I'm just making sure that I'm covering all the nooks and corners, getting enough inks at all the corner. I'm done here. That looks really pretty. Very happy with it. Now I'm going to move the negative die cut to a different position, and I'm going to use a different ink, and this time I'm going to use crushed olive. And basically going to repeat the same process. I have actually kept the negative, positioned the negative die cut on top of the already sponged festive berry leaves. So this actually basically adds to the layers and also gives a bit of depth. So I'm now using the same movement, going from out to in, inside, starting from the outside and pushing the ink inside, so I do not bend the little nooks and corners inside the negative die cut. And in some places I'm going to use the twist and lift motion, just making sure I'm covering all the corners out here and getting a good coverage of the ink. Okay. I'm basically going to do the same process by moving the die cut to different positions and using different inks here. So I just increase the volume of the background music and also speed up the video for you here. Okay, now it is all done. Love how the fall colors and the layered leaves look. I love the depth. I think I need to add a bit of spice marmalade on this side because I think there's a bit more of muted colors out there. So a little bright orange I think would balance the entire thing off. So I'm adding a bit of spice marmalade. It's very hard to stop, so once you get the hang of it and start sponging, you just feel like adding more and more. But I think somewhere along the way you just have to stop, take a step back and look and see, alright, that's all done, looks beautiful, and just stop. Okay, and this is how my die cut looks after sponging. I might just trim off that bit and use the others. For the sentiment, I'm using the big, the bold and blessing stamp set from Winnie and Walter, and I'm going to be stamping the holiday blessings as I did on my original card, and I'm also going to be using the sequins from Pretty Pink Posh as I did on my original card. I actually stamped the sentiment in black on my original card, which now I tend to realize that probably brown would be a better color keeping with the fall theme. So for this card I'm using Kappa Joe from Hero Arts. This is a shadow ink from Hero Arts, which I'm inking up right now. Oops, I think I haven't inked the sentiment properly, so here I ink again. I always tend to do that, and the sentiment fits perfectly on the card. Yay! Okay, now I'm going to add the sequins, and I generally fiddle with it quite a bit, so I'm going to increase the volume of my background music and speed up the video as well. There, that's all done. The panel is finished. I have my card base here, which is 4 by 5.5 in size. The panel is going to be mounted towards my right using foam adhesive, and to my left I'm going to be using a wood grain pattern paper, which I'm going to trim to size using my trimmer, which is a bit away from my desk. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, here I am. I'm going to adhere the wood grain pattern paper first. generally trim a bit longer because I just can't get the size right and adhere it on my card front right. If it's a bit longer, I can just trim off the excess using my scissors, which is much more easier than trying to line up a perfectly trimmed strip of pattern paper. So now that's done, and I'll use foam adhesive to on the finished panel. Lining up now. That's good. The card's finished. Here is my original card towards my right, and the card which I showed you on my left, and here are some of the photos of the finished card. Hope you enjoyed my video. Thanks for stopping by.